Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 233 called Rachel Sloan. This episode is sponsored by MIRA. How does MIRA help track ovulation? MIRA measures actual fertility hormone concentrations with 99% accuracy. MIRA is unlike other fertility trackers. It uses technology that's similar to what's used in the fertility lab, so it's just like having your own mini lab at home. With the power of AI, MIRA learns about your cycle and gives you personalized and accurate insights about your ovulation and fertility window. And yes, it works for those with irregular cycles and PCOS. MIRA syncs your data automatically, eliminating both manual charting and guesswork. Designed to be expandable, the MIRA system will also offer more at-home health tracking in the future. In addition to LH, E3G, and PDG, MIRA now has the capacity to measure your FSH and soon your HCG, plus other hormones. Guys, that's a mouthful. Order the MIRA Starter Kit or MIRA Plus Starter Kit online at miracare.com with promo code InfertileAF to get an exclusive discount. Again, go to miracare.com, that's miracare.com, use code InfertileAF, and you'll get an exclusive InfertileAF listener discount. Thanks, MIRA. This podcast is sponsored by RECEPTIVA DX. RECEPTIVA DX is a powerful test that has helped thousands of women who've experienced recurrent pregnancy loss or IVF failure. The test helps detect inflammatory conditions of the uterus that might be preventing you from becoming pregnant or staying pregnant. The most common underlying condition of a positive RECEPTIVA DX test is endometriosis with or without symptoms. If you or someone you know has struggled with IVF, RECEPTIVA DX may give you the answer and treatment protocols that you're looking for. Talk with your doctor about RECEPTIVA DX because the journey is so worth it. Plus, guys, Infertile AF listeners are getting $75 off the RECEPTIVA DX test. So all you have to do is go to receptivadx.com or download the app RECEPTIVA DX, use code InfertileAF23, and you'll get $75 off. Thanks, RECEPTIVA DX. You guys, I love today's guest. Rachel Sloan is such a cool woman. I'm so glad I've gotten to know her. She is the owner and designer of Peak and Valley Beads, which is a jewelry company that she started herself. And they have jewelry for not only this community, but beyond, and other accessories as well. But she's all about female empowerment and supporting people who are going through their journeys. So today we're going to talk about Rachel's journey. She's going to tell us how she had her 3 kiddos, and she's going to talk about being in a military family and doing IVF at a military hospital. She's going to talk about IVF. She's going to talk about placenta complications due to the IVF process. She's going to talk about postpartum depression, being pregnant with twins in the time of the Roe v. Wade turnover, starting her own business, and so much more. I adore her. She's a lot of fun to talk to, and she's an open book. So I hope you guys like this one. I loved talking to her. So without further ado, this is Rachel's infertility story. Oh my gosh, Rachel Sloan. Hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yes, same. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much for doing this. We are going to talk all about your story. We're going to talk about Peak and Valley Beads, and you've gone beyond the original stuff with that. And there's so many cool things that you guys are offering now. So I do want to talk about that a little bit later. Yeah. But as everybody listening knows, I always like to start with the original question, which is, did you always want to be a mom?
I did. But for me, motherhood felt like something very hypothetical, far off in the future. Like I knew I wanted to be a mom, but I didn't really understand what it meant to be a mom. And I feel like I was just focused on like, just the next step. So it's like, get out of high school, get out of college, and then career. And then, I didn't really think about it practically until someone was like, oh, you need IVF to have kids. And I was like, ugh.
So I know a lot happened between that notion and someone saying that to you, but tell me how you got to that point. What was happening?
So our story started when we met in August 2017 and got married in December 2017.
Okay.
4.5 months we knew each other when we got married, very fast.
I love that.
I'm from Southern California. I was living in San Diego. I was a wedding photographer running a business with my two best friends. And I met a really, really hot guy in the Navy. And I was like, yeah, we're going to get married.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay.
He's from East Texas, just like a country Southern gentleman. And he swept me off my feet. And 3 months after we got married, we moved to Hawaii. Where he was stationed at Pearl Harbor.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Incredible. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was that lifestyle like? Was that a huge change?
It was a huge change. You know, moving to a new place, there's a lot of grieving that happens. Like, obviously Hawaii's amazing. And we were a newly married couple, no kids. So we had all the freedom in the world to enjoy Hawaii. But also I left my business partners and was starting a new branch of our photography business there. And so there was a lot of like loneliness too. As amazing as it was a little lonely. So then to be, you know, we decided we wanted to start trying. And my husband had mentioned to me when we were first started dating that at his, like, when you join the military, they like check you out up and down. And someone had said he had a large vein around one of his testicles. You know, he's a 23-year-old guy. He's like, well, it doesn't hurt, so I'm good, you know, and
right. Exactly.
And of course, the Google maniac that I am, when we started trying, you know, the first thing that pops up is possible male factor infertility. It's like a varicocele.
Yep.
Just a big old vein around your balls that makes them warm, and the sperm don't like that. And I didn't know anything about male factor infertility. And I was very ignorant to it. And I thought, oh, well, you just shouldn't wear tight underwear and shouldn't go into a hot tub.
Hot tubs. Exactly.
Yeah. So very early on in our trying to conceive, I was like, hey, I think you have this thing. And he was like, hey, I think you're crazy. You know?
Oh my God.
And, you know, he's like this big, strong, tough guy. And his new wife, who he barely freaking knows, is like, I think you're infertile.
It's so interesting because I feel like guys, for the most part, like never, you know, it's always the woman who we start with and getting the women tested and stuff. Mm-hmm. So for you to point that out and like, I mean, I think it's a total normal reaction for a guy, especially a 23-year-old hot military guy.
I know.
Like, you're crazy.
And I know, don't you think that they should just start with sperm? Like, it's the easiest test. Like,
or both, you know, just start across the board. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the easiest test to run. I mean, I wasn't having any orgasms during my fertility testing, so at least they have a little bit of fun while they get tested, you know?
Exactly. Good way to look at it.
Yeah. But he, you know, I gave him some space to process it. And he actually talked to a guy on his ship who had gone through IVF for male factor. And this guy happened to be the guy that could give him the order for semen analysis. And so we didn't have to wait for a year of trying or whatever. And that was kind of the benefit of the military, especially him being stationed on a ship. Mm-hmm. You know, the way all that, like, a ship is its own, like, ecosystem and world. And so his, you know, the ship doctor or whatever he was like, okay, yeah, go do that. And that's when they told us that his sperm count was no bueno.
Okay.
And
so how did that news land?
We both cried. You know, he cried his one glistening manly tear running down his beautiful face. Mm-hmm. And I didn't start crying until the doctor started explaining to me all the things I was going to have to do IVF. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa.
Uh-huh. What did they tell you? And what did you know about IVF? Did you know anything about it?
I knew that celebrities did it and you had to be rich and every cliche there is.
Yeah. Did you think it was a guarantee?
I actually didn't. Okay. Because how I am as a person, and this is how I process every difficult news in my life, is I'm going to research the worst case scenario and I'm going to live in that. And hopefully it doesn't happen that way. So, I mean, I was telling people, I was like, we still don't know if I'm infertile yet. Like, who knows? Like, they're going to do testing on me. Like, I could have something wrong with me. I really lived. I don't want to call it negative. I lived in, like, I didn't want to get my hopes up about anything. And we kind of processed and talked about what it would look like if it didn't work, or what if there was something going on with me. But it turns your whole world upside down. Everything pauses. Yeah. And for us, the factor that we had going on is that we were living 5,000 miles away from the mainland. It's not cheap to come to Hawaii. We didn't have our friends who could just like drop by and like comfort us or be there for us. Like, we were alone, this new married couple who barely knew each other. I'm working from home mostly because I'm a wedding photographer. And it was just such a lonely, lonely thing.
Totally. Yeah. I get it. And so what were the next steps? Were you like, we're going to start treatment right away? Or like, did you guys have to kind of process this I'd love to hear how it works in the military. You said it's kind of its own little bubble. So can you explain that as well?
So here's something really cool. There are 5 military hospitals that have REI clinics in them. 5.
Okay.
Oahu is one of them, is where we were stationed across the ocean. The other ones are in San Diego, Seattle, San Antonio, and the other one's on the East Coast. I want to say it's Maryland or Virginia.
Okay.
And as active duty military, we were able to go to the clinic in the military hospital. A lot was covered. So ultrasounds, like any kind of like doctor's visit was covered. We just had to pay $7,500 to an outside clinic because the military hospitals don't have like embryology labs and embryologists. So they kind of like use their facilities. Our military doctors use their facilities for my egg retrieval and for my transfer and for storage. So it ended up only costing us $7,500, which it's still a lot of money. And to a new married couple who like, I came into marriage with a little bit of credit card debt, you know what I'm saying? So
totally.
I was like,
oh my God, who doesn't?
We were young. And I remember going to pick up my big bag of IVF meds from the pharmacy at the military hospital, and they just handed them to me. They're like, here you go. And I was like, oh my God, this is like $10,000 worth of meds.
Totally.
I remember them saying like a Gonal-F pen was like $2,500. And I was like, I have 2 of these,
Oh my God.
It felt like gold. But before we decided to do IVF, we had a meeting with the head of infertility at the military hospital, an amazing guy, smart doctor. We kind of talked about Adam's options. Like he could do certain injections, which the doctor was like, but dude, I'm going to warn you, they might make you moody. And I was like, what's the big deal? But apparently that was the big deal. And we talked about the varicocele surgery. They can, do surgery and then you wait 6 months and see if the count increases. But the kind of like the kicker with us is that Adam had a deployment on the books. And so we were like, which those things can change at any time. And so they were like, or with his current sperm count, IVF is what's recommended. Like we can do these things to try to increase the sperm count, and there's more waiting, there's more treatment, there's more trying. Or with what you have going on, you can just go straight to IVF, bank some embryos. He's in the military. It gave me the freedom to kind of, if needed, do our family planning journey despite his work. And so that's what we decided to do. Like, I'm like a cut to the chase kind of girl. I'm like, let's just go for it.
Let's just do it.
And I had room on my Alaska credit card. So I just put it on down for the $7,500 and said, all right,
okay,
we're doing IVF. And that was not my attitude at the time. It was really hard, but
yes,
we joke now to,
how did it go? Like once you started with all the meds and everything and the protocol?
So IVF is a very intense thing. In my opinion, looking back, I think emotionally, it's so much harder than the physical portion of it. It's all of the fear that it's not going to work. It's people in your life not really understanding what you're going through. That stuff was really hard. But if I looked back on it for me and my pain tolerance, my emotional tolerance, like I don't feel like the physical portion of it was that bad, but it's the fact that it's your family on the line that just makes everything so hard. But I mean, I responded great. We got 37 eggs, 19 fertilized, 10 embryos, and 3 of those embryos are our kids. Okay.
So tell me about going through the first. So that was a good retrieval, obviously. Again, you said you do a lot of research and you're Google master. Were you like comparing the numbers and going on and like, who did you have supporting you at this point? Like, were there other women that you'd connected with who were also going through this?
No, like I didn't really get into sharing about our infertility until after I was pregnant. I was really kind of, I guess also too, I hadn't found a lot of accounts yet, but I really just, when you live in Hawaii and everyone else is on the mainland, you're just calling your girlfriends all the time,
Right.
And just trying to help them understand. And thankfully I have really amazing friends who know that I want to talk about it. So they were asking me questions, and one of my very best friends in the world, who's I'm still very close with today, she got accidentally pregnant during my IVF cycle, and she did not want any more kids. And she was like, I know you're going through something right now. I need you to just tell me what the boundaries are, because I want you to feel really comfortable. And I was like, well, you're going to be my best friend forever.
That's a great way to put it. A great way to phrase it. Yeah.
Yeah. She was just like, I don't know how to navigate this. So I want you to communicate with me. And I feel like so many issues in relationships are just about unspoken needs that aren't met. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when you are going through something like infertility, to have a friend say, what are your needs? I was like, oh, cool. This is awesome. Like,
yeah,
yes,
that's so important. I think that it's a good thing for people listening is, if your loved one is going through this, for example, I feel like sometimes people don't talk about stuff because they just don't know what to say. But what I've learned, and kind of going along with what you just said, is you can be like, I don't know how to navigate this. Help me. Yeah. Because I want to navigate it. Just say, I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe we can work through this together. What are the things, what would be helpful right now? What can I say to you? What shouldn't I say? Like just being clear about, not knowing how to navigate it, I think takes that air out of that like weird, the weirdness.
If you don't know what to say, I don't know what to say. Yeah. Like you got to say something.
Yeah.
Because if you don't say anything, that person just feels ignored. And I think that's where so much of the loneliness comes from. Like, and everyone's just so scared about things being awkward. Who cares if it's awkward? Like, let it be awkward. Like, this is not a comfortable thing for anybody. It just sucks. And so thankfully I have people in my life who go to therapy and know how to communicate and are always trying to grow and be better and connected and really value friendship. So I really leaned on my friends who were just awesome, awesome women.
Yeah. Okay. So then what happened when you did the transfer?
Transfer worked. I got a positive after 6 days. I did not believe it, could not believe it. And I, again, because I'm let's assume the worst before anything else, I was just very cautious. And people want to ask you like, what about baby names? What about gender? And all of that felt very threatening to me. Very I was like, no, we're not there yet. We're not there. I felt very protective over my first pregnancy. And this is something interesting that happened to us too. I forgot about that. At 18 weeks, I had a routine appointment and the midwife was like, I don't see your results for your CF test. I was like, oh, we did IVF. Like they're in there. She's like, okay. And then she called me. She's like, so they never tested you. And so we're going to do your blood draw. And I was like, okay. And she's like, so you're a carrier for CF.
So that's cystic fibrosis.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And that is like basic cable IVF baseline testing.
Right. I forgot to ask you, were your embryos tested?
No.
Okay. Got it.
No, our doctor, I was 30 at the time. My husband when we did IVF, if I was 30, he was 26. Uh-huh. And he was just like, cause your age, like, you're good. So we're like, okay, cool.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But it turns out I'm a carrier for cystic fibrosis. So when I was 18 weeks pregnant, I found that out. And so we had to do the waiting game of my husband getting his blood drawn.
Oh God.
It was so stressful.
How long did you have to wait for the results? Because that is treacherous.
So this is what happened. We did the initial testing. I want to say it took a few days, but they're like, and I don't even know how true this is. Someone corrected me and I was like, no, this is what they told me. They're like, we tested him for the most common 39 markers, but there's 1,000. So we could run the second test too. And I was like, can we just run all of them?
Yeah, exactly.
So then they ran the second test and they're like, oh, actually we accidentally ran him for the first test again for the 39. And I was like, you know what, at this point, I just gotta move on. And I have 3 healthy kids. So we are going to say that Adam is not a carrier for cystic fibrosis.
Okay.
But that was just like not a fun curveball once you're finally pregnant. And we had another scare with my son too, which is just very common in pregnancy. Like pregnancy is still very mysterious. And we had one of those situations when I was 13 weeks pregnant where they were like, could be nothing, could be something. We're going to have to wait and see. We went back for a scan like a month later and they're like, oh, you're good. And I'd lived the last month thinking this could be it.
So wait, was this your second pregnancy? The first pregnancy?
First pregnancy. At 13 weeks, they're like, could be something, could be nothing. At 17 weeks, they're like, you're good. And then at 18 weeks, they're like, you're a carrier for cystic fibrosis.
Okay. So this was all the same. Yeah. I think it's so funny though, that like, it's almost like you don't know what you don't know. You know, there's so many curveballs you can get thrown, as you said, and there's so many ways that this could not work out well, that when it does, you're like, oh my God, so many things had to line up for me to have a healthy baby. You know, it's just wild.
It's really, really crazy. You realize, like, it sounds so cliche, but like, what a miracle it is that we
I know. I just got the chills.
Yeah. Like really, the fact that I'm 34 years old sitting here is a miracle in a lot of ways. So
totally. Yeah, it really is. It really is. So, okay. So the rest of the pregnancy hopefully was a little more uneventful with your first one.
We remodeled our condo and I shocked myself on some live wires. That was one thing that was super fun. Yeah.
Did you have to go to the hospital, or were you injured, or?
I drove myself I got shocked. I don't think I was injured. My heart didn't like skip a beat or anything, but I frantically drove myself to labor and delivery because I was like, this is it. This is the bad thing that I've been waiting for. And the baby was fine. They're like, if that happens again, we want you to go to the emergency room because you matter too. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. I put me first. Yeah. But mostly uneventful. And then we ended up inducing with my son because my husband had an underway scheduled, which in the Navy, an underway is like a mini deployment, like a week, 2 weeks, And so we got to have an elective induction so he could, be there. And he was there and I had my son, and my labor was hard. A really interesting thing happened in my labor where they put like a ball between my legs to open your hips or whatever. And I, after that, like just bawled for like 2 hours, just like the deepest, most sorrowful sobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I later heard someone say, which it was on Instagram, so who knows, but say that hip opening positions release grief.
Yes. The hips are a huge storage depot for lots of stress and tension and trauma.
And I
learned that in yoga. Yeah.
I have chills thinking about it. Like I had an experience that was I could cry about it. Like I just wept.
Yeah.
Like snot down the face for probably 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was like all the things I was holding in, the grief about moving away from family and feeling so alone, and infertility and all like the really invasive stuff that happens to you with infertility, like really genuinely feeling like violated during some procedures. The intention was not there to make me feel violated, but like when you got hands and instruments up your hoo-ha, you're just like,
people are coming in and out of the room and, they're using procedures.
Dignity.
Yeah. 100%.
It's just treated as like a normal part of being a woman. But I would argue to say that like, it's common to go through those things, but let's not make it normal to feel so just vulnerable like that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay. So then you had your son, and how long before you guys started talking about the next round or what you were going to do next?
So there's a lot that happens between each one. Do you want me to like skip to the twins, or do you want me to tell the middle chunk of the story?
No, you can tell me as much as you like. Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, I was just going to say we could circle back to it, but so I had my son, and I want to tell this quick part of the story of his birth where I had him and then my placenta wouldn't come out. And the doctor was like counting down, because I guess you have 30 minutes to get it out before things kind of get a little sketchy. And she was like, all right, we've got 30 minutes. We got 2 minutes. We got 1 minute. And I was just like, what is happening? My son's literally on my chest, and the doctor says, I'm going to glove up. And I was like, cool. And she put a glove up to her elbow, and she reached her whole arm up inside my body. And she did a full manual sleep on my uterus. I felt her fingers tickle my ribs where my son had been kicking me like hours before.
Oh my God.
It was so painful. It was so traumatic. It was so terrible. And she pulls it out and she was like, your placenta looks old. I see this a lot in IVF. And she just like chucks it in the bucket. And I have since circled back, talked to multiple OBGYNs, and every single one has said they believe that the IVF hormones in the beginning will prematurely age a lot of people's placentas. They become sticky, meaning they grow too far into the uterine wall and they won't come out on their own. Some women have a lot of crazy bleeding. I didn't. They were able to get it out without me hemorrhaging. But like a heads up would have been nice about that one.
We've been talking about doing a fertility rally live breakout session on the placental issues that come from doing IVF, because there is a whole host of them. And you're right. Yeah.
And, and all of that stuff that happened in my pregnancy and my delivery, it really made me realize the really bummer deal is that going through infertility doesn't exempt you from the hardships of pregnancy and early motherhood. It's just this extra fun thing, sarcasm, that we have to go through. Like, infertility is not the last hard thing you're going to have to go through as on your motherhood journey. And that really sucks. And it feels really unfair. Even after you have your kids, you're like, really? Like,
totally.
I had to have someone's arm up inside of me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's been a part of I think the grieving process for me. Also, like, grieving the belief that I had that having kids would just make it all go away. It doesn't.
Yes.
It's this continual process of grieving and re-understanding. I feel like you can only process so much grief at a time. So it kind of like comes into my life in like chunks.
Yeah. Grief is not linear. You never know when it's going to hit you.
It is so brutal.
Yeah. And I don't think it ever truly goes away. It might change forms or, kind of lessen depending, but sometimes not. And everybody's so different too.
Yeah. And, having my son healed a lot of the infertility issues that we went through, but then we did it again to have our twins. So not to skip ahead too much, but basically I had my son on Valentine's Day, 2020. We were living on the beautiful island of Oahu with the condo where you could see the ocean off of our backyard. And it was like, on paper, absolute bliss. But then when he was like 3-4 weeks old, the whole world shut down with COVID.
Right. How was that for you with a 3 or 4 week old?
It was terrible. Hawaii got it the worst of all the states. It's an island chain with limited resources. What does it mean when the world shuts down? Nobody knew. What does it mean when the world shuts down when you live on an island and you get your toilet paper on a boat?
Right. So what was what was day to day like for you guys? Like, what did you not have that you needed?
So Hawaii, I ended up leaving Hawaii when my son was 9 months old, because my husband, spoiler alert, ended up deploying when my son was 6 months old.
Okay.
When I left Hawaii when he was 9 months old, they were still in stay-at-home orders. My son did not meet another adult really, other than his pediatrician, until we got back to the mainland. We did not go anywhere. We did not see anyone. And the first couple of weeks were awesome because it's like my husband got extra paternity leave because even the military wasn't going to work. It was crazy. But I was a new mom and all of our family had to cancel their flights to come meet our baby. Very lonely. It's just us. And when you have a new baby as partners, it can get tense. You're tired. And we had no buffer. We had no buffer of someone to come over and like cheer us up or bring us. We were just like on our own in a little condo with no air conditioning for a very long time. And when my son was 3 months old, I experienced a lot of like postpartum depression symptoms. And when my son was 3 months old, I randomly was just like, "Hey, Adam, I'm going to go. I'll be back." And he was like, "All right, okay." And I just drove to my doctor's office.
Okay. So what was it? What did that look like for you? Can you describe a little bit how you felt?
Really pissed, really angry, a lot of rage. I had like, the typical baby blues, a lot of crying. I could not stand to be in my skin. My body felt foreign to me. I had torn with my son, so I had stitches. I was just like not. And the bummer deal about having to go through infertility before this is my body already didn't feel like my body. And then you get pregnant. Then you have to be pregnant and postpartum and then maybe pregnant again and postpartum again. And I didn't end up breastfeeding. Breastfeeding didn't work out for me, which I think is something that emotionally made my postpartum harder. I was really disappointed about that. But
was that pressure that you put on yourself, or was it coming from the outside world or combo?
I just assumed it would work. I just was like, oh, this is what we're going to do. And it's going to help me lose all the baby weight. And it's going to be great. And I wanted that connective experience. And I feel myself like choking up just talking about it. It was so sad. It was so sad. But there's also a lot of benefits to formula feeding too. So my husband and I got to sleep in shifts and that was great.
Yep.
So the pandemic was really like the culmination of a lot of loss and grief in my life. Yeah. And a lot that I gained too. I gained a husband, but I lost all my friends in a move, not the friendships, but I lost my community and my support system in a move. And, you know, I gained this baby, but I lost a lot through IVF. And so it was really just like everything, the perfect storm of like, this season needs to be about me now. Needs to be about taking care of me. So I also did struggle with like intrusive thoughts of self-harm, not any kind of plan or any kind of narrative that I did not want to be alive anymore, but like driving and like resisting the urge to like drive off the road. I was that's interesting. Or when I was frustrated, I would imagine myself like hitting my head against the wall. And I was like, oh, like that, when that stuff started, I was like, I have to go to the doctor.
Yes. I'm so glad that you did. And what did the doctor do? And what was the course of treatment? And what did they say? And how did they approach it?
I will say I had the most amazing experience getting help for my postpartum depression.
Good.
I went to the doctor's office. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Like walking in that door felt like I was walking through sand. I was like, I don't want to be here. This sucks. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But I was honest about what I was feeling and what I was thinking. And they were just so kind and loving and like, this is okay. We're going to help you. And because it's the military, in an hour, I was holding my little bag of medicine and they were like, our therapist is here today. Do you want to see her? And I was like, yeah, I do. And this therapist, I will just like never forget this woman. When I sat down in the therapist's office, she's like, the first thing I want to say, I am just so happy that you're here. And I was just like, so relieved, because when you feel crazy, you just don't want to be a burden to anybody. You don't want to stress anyone out. Like everyone was going through something at that time, like within the pandemic, but outside of it, like one of my good friends was going through a divorce. Like one of my friends has a special needs son. Like everyone was dealing with so much. And to just have a person be like, I am so happy you're here. I was just like, oh my God, thank God. So I saw her not as like a long-term therapy, but like a short-term 8-week, once a week, like, let's get you back on track, started taking the meds, started evening out, feeling a lot better. And then that is about the time that Adam deployed for a year.
Okay. Oh, wow. So, where did he go?
He went, so when you're stationed in Hawaii, you go towards like Singapore, then like the Middle East, South China Sea situation. The real bummer for him and how deployment really affected his mental health was that because it was the pandemic, they did not let them off the ship one time.
This episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. This summer, HelloFresh has a whole bunch of chef-crafted seasonal recipes, plus their new Fresh and Fit summer menu. It's peak time for summer produce, and HelloFresh makes sure you get all the best picks all season long. Their ingredients travel from the farm to your door in less than 7 days for quality that you can taste. HelloFresh gets it that you want options when it comes to what to make for dinner, not just the same thing all the time. That's why they offer 40 recipes to choose from every single week, so you'll never get bored and can always find something new to try and love. I got my most recent HelloFresh delivery just in time because I've been in a total cooking rut. Trying to think of things to make every day and night this summer has become a chore, and I don't want to rely on restaurant delivery. Thankfully, HelloFresh's recipes like prawn and chorizo paella, warm Mediterranean vegetable and chorizo pasta salad, and roasted sweet potato and ginger garlic tofu stew arrive just in time. By portioning everything out and providing step-by-step instructions, they make it super easy, so fast, and also pretty fun. So here's the deal. Go to HelloFresh.com/InfertileAF50 and use code InfertileAF50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/InfertileAF50 and then use code InfertileAF50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Thanks to HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. This episode is sponsored by True Earth Laundry Detergent Eco Strips. True Earth's mission is to help reduce the billions of plastic household containers that end up in our landfills and oceans every year. They currently have household products to make your chores easier in the laundry room, the kitchen, and the bathroom. So a few weeks ago, guys, I got True Earth laundry detergent eco strips in the mail, and I got the fresh linen scented and the fragrance free. And on my next 2 loads of laundry, I used one of each kind. Okay, so I'm not exaggerating when I say that I am obsessed. These True Earth strips are smaller than the size of your hand, and all you do is take one out of the package, toss it in the machine with your clothes, and it makes everything come out fresh and clean and soft. They're so easy to use, and I honestly don't think I'll ever turn back to like a big jug laundry detergent again. Let's talk about the packaging. It comes in a super compact recyclable paper envelope, and each one contains enough for 35 loads. To see the True Earth package sitting next to my giant plastic jug made me never ever want to use anything but True Earth again. Think of the impact it has on the environment, and if people weren't using all of that plastic. I know that so many of you are into clean and toxin-free household products, so please know that True Earth is paraben-free, phosphate-free, free of added dyes, free of chlorine bleach, vegan, no animal testing, hypoallergenic, and readily biodegradable. It's also really travel friendly. I could go on and on. So here's the best part. You can try True Earth today at true.earth/InfertileAF and use code InfertileAF to get 12% off your order. Again, that's tru.earth/InfertileAF and use code InfertileAF to get 12% off today. Thanks, True Earth. And now, a brief word from one of our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Avi. Avi is the obvious choice in health and wellness supplements. Their products range from collagen for your hair, skin, and nails, to weight loss solutions, to immune support, to hormone balance. Avi has more than 400,000 customers worldwide and has a Facebook community with over 65,000 active members. So guys, I got a box full of Avi products recently and I added them to my daily routine. One of their products that I want to talk about today is called Goodbye, and it's my new fave. So here's why. Avi's Goodbye is the perfect solution to hormonal balance issues, which include weight gain, hormonal acne, hot flashes, and so much more. Goodbye contains key ingredients such as DIM to help regulate estrogen production and KSM66 ashwagandha to help you feel relaxed and stress-free. And I must say that since adding Avi to my daily routine, I've had more energy and a clearer mind. So guess what, everybody? I think you guys can probably guess. You've probably heard enough of these podcast episodes to know that InfertileAF listeners can get 25% off today with code InfertileAF at myavi.com. That's myobvi.com. Use promo code InfertileAF and you'll get 25% off today. It's super Avi why you should do it. See what I did there? Let Avi help you reach your goals this summer. Again, go to myavi.com and use code InfertileAF for 25% off. Thanks, Avi.
So he is stuck on a ship for months and months and months.
Wow.
He's like 250 pounds right now. He's 6'4". He was 190 when he got off the ship. He was like a skeleton.
Oh my God. And you weren't able to see him, obviously, right? Could you guys like FaceTime or do any of that kind of stuff? Or?
We FaceTimed a couple times when they went into port, even though they couldn't get off the ship, they still like went into port. But really we just talked so his deployment was 9 months, but we lived apart for the last 3 months because of logistical military stuff. But for the 9 months, we only talked on Facebook Messenger, really. Mm-hmm. And so I tried to do the first 3 months in lockdown in our condo in Hawaii by myself with my IVF baby. And pretty soon I was like, I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. Like I can't. I started like counting down the hours until I could go to sleep. And I've gone through seasons of like depression and heartbreak. I called off a wedding in my early 20s. Like I've been through things in my life. People I loved have died. I've never been like, I cannot wait to be unconscious tonight.
Yeah.
And I was like,
interesting.
This is real. Like I was like, it's getting real, Rach. Like I like to study myself. Like I'm my own anthropologist. You know?
Yes. But I love how you're so in tune with your emotions and how you take action. You know, I think that's a really good thing that you did for yourself in terms of self-care and getting the help you need when you need it and recognizing like something's off, right?
Thank you. And, you know, one of the big things I did for myself during this time was to start my small business. And that was actually a recommendation from my therapist. She was like, you're an entrepreneur, you're a photographer. You're not doing it right now because no one was having weddings in Hawaii.
Right.
She was like, you should do something. And that's really kind of how Pecan Valley Beads started.
Yes.
I had no expectations for it.
Zero. Okay. Tell me about, what was your vision? And like, had you always been, cause you started with the bracelets, right? Or
I started with
bracelets. You launch with? Okay. So had you made them before?
No, I knew nothing about making jewelry.
Okay.
This is what I told myself. I was like, you know what? I've been a wedding photographer for almost 10 years. I can convince people to give me $6,000 to photograph their once in a lifetime wedding. I bet I could sell a $20 bracelet. And that's kind of like the confidence that I went into it with. I was like, I can do this. So let me try to do it really, really well, was kind of like my vibe. And also I needed something to fill my days other than just staring at my 6-month-old. They're not very, 6-month-olds, they have a lot of needs, but they don't give a lot back.
Yeah.
And I was alone and watching TV all day, just sitting in the condo, like bouncing my baby on it. Like I needed something. And starting a business, which business kind of has its own life force. My business, I always refer to her as a she, because legally I incorporated her this year. So legally she is her own person now. But business kind of has its own life force. And I think it's something that you can nurture and you can grow and there's a lot of satisfaction in bringing something up and building it to be something. But really, because I just assumed that the pandemic would all go away and I would just be a wedding photographer again, my pipe dream for the business was like, if I can make like an extra $1,000 a month, like how cool would that be?
Right.
And the first month we did $2,500 in sales. And I was like, okay, nobody move, no sudden movements. We have something here. This could be something, I was just like, oh my God.
Tell me about the first bracelet you made.
The first bracelet I made was actually nothing to do with infertility. I had put the shop up around the time that my husband deployed and I didn't do anything with it. I'm on Etsy currently as the platform. With the platform, there's a lot of nurturing that has to go on. It has an algorithm just like social media. I didn't do anything with it, but someone in Hawaii bought a custom bracelet that said Beach Mom on it. And when the order came through, I felt really excited. And it was the first time in a long time that I had felt really excited. And I was like, cool. And that was when I was like, okay, now I have to market this. So I reached out to people who I knew who'd gone through IVF at this point and said, hey, can I send you something? Or it was, hey, can you buy something from my shop? I'm going to price it really low. Give me a 5-star review if you love it. Like I needed to get this rolling. And that's just kind of how it all really started. But in the beginning of the business, really, in the middle of the business becoming a thing, I had realized that I could not live alone in our condo anymore, that I needed support.
Right.
And so we decided to move me to East Texas, where my husband's family is, me and my son. We decided to move me. And it was the hardest, most stressful thing I've ever done. It's very expensive to move from Hawaii. The military did not pay for our move. We literally spent all of our money to get me and Warren to safety, basically.
Oh, wow.
Like a 7-foot by 7-foot pod was $4,500.
Oh, wow.
And so my dad flew out, we sold all of our furniture. We filled up this pod to the brim. And I remember standing in my backyard at sunset in Hawaii, staring at Diamond Head in the distance on Oahu. And I remember being like, Dad, am I doing the right thing? And he's like, Rach, oh, and I love my dad, so I'm going to cry. He was like, Rach, this is really awesome here, but it's okay to go. I was like, yeah, it is. It's hard to let go of something you really love. And I think people think that because something is great, that it's like meant for you. Hawaii was great. And our condo was awesome. And our life there before the pandemic was really amazing. And I had an amazing photography business there that I had to let go of. But I needed something different. And this was the first time in my life that I did something that was for me, like 100% for me. Moving from Hawaii was expensive. It was convenient for no one. My dad and my brother flew there from Pennsylvania to help me move. It cost everyone money. When we got to Texas, in-laws had like bought us furniture. My mom flew out from Pennsylvania and stayed with me for like 3 months straight to get me situated. Everyone was inconvenienced, quote unquote, because of this. And it was what I needed. And I don't feel bad about it. I didn't feel bad about it. And it really gave me this confidence going into being a parent where I was like, I'm important. Like, I really matter. And it's okay if people are inconvenienced for my well-being. I'm not going to be a detriment to anyone else's well-being for my well-being, but people can be inconvenienced. That's okay.
Right. Exactly. It's hard to ask for help sometimes. And it's hard to, I think as women, we're so used to taking care of other people. And it's, this whole historical reason and all that stuff we don't need to get into. It's a different episode. But, it's hard for us to ask people to do things for us because we're worried, that if we're not doing everything ourselves, I don't know, like, it's not normal, I feel like. So I think it's a huge thing that you did that. I do want everybody to check out your peakanvalley.beads on Instagram. It's gifts of hope for infertility, loss, and mamas. You have so much cool stuff now. So tell me just quickly about the products that you guys have now.
Yeah.
So you've grown from bracelets, you've got necklaces, you've got t-shirts and mugs and onesies, and what else?
Yeah. So the product started out with the bracelets, and then we go to the keychains and the necklaces. And the thing that was really important to me about the business was the customization aspects of all of these pieces. I just feel like retail is missing such a huge market in the infertility and loss communities, where there's so many people who go through this and not anyone is really acknowledging anyone in a mainstream way. And so I never want anyone to feel excluded from my shop, which is why there are so many custom options. And a lot of the products we have are because someone asked for it. They're like, hey, do you have anything for embryo adoption? I'm like, no, but I'm going to tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so most of our bracelets are handmade beaded bracelets. It's myself and a helper, a dear childhood friend who works for me. And, she's a single mom. So I love being able to give her work and give her a Christmas bonus. And, we're just two girls who are just trying to make it through being parents and all the things that come with that, and also provide for ourselves and our families. And we have our beaded bracelets. We have custom bar necklaces with Swarovski crystals. What's really, really popular right now are our floral resin necklaces. So different flowers that are kind of preserved in resin and a pendant. We have custom ones. We have ones that come as is, like with a forget-me-not or what have you for losses. People love those.
Those are really pretty.
And, I'd say a little more than half of our customers are shopping for themselves, and a little less than half people are buying gifts. And I see just the most amazing, beautiful gift messages with our products. And there's this narrative, which I don't want to say it's untrue, but because it's not untrue, but a lot of us feel alone on this journey and that nobody cares and feel forgotten.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, I have seen the proof. I see it every single day in my shop that we all really love each other. And people want to be there for you, but they have no idea how. And that's such a big part of our branding as a business is we are the how. Like, no one has any excuse to not do something thoughtful for someone on this journey, because we exist now.
Right.
Most gifts come with pre-written message cards with sentiments that I've written based on my experience or things that people have shared with me. We really want the personalization to be there, because so many people going through this journey feel alone, but they aren't. People aren't using their voices to say, like what we talked about before, like, how can I be there for you in this time?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I love highlighting people who have taken their infertility journey and turned it into something else. That's why I started this podcast. That's why we started Fertility Rally, who you have done stuff with. You've donated some of your amazing stuff for our Fertility Rally live events and stuff, and would love to do more with you in the future. We'll talk about that offline. But, I just think it's so special when it's coming from a heartfelt place and a place where you saw a hole and it needed to be filled, and you're filling it with your own experience and so much love too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, and like you made me think of this when you said it's filled from a heartfelt place, is that I feel like people online are really fed up with things that aren't authentic.
Yeah.
And that's why using your story can be so powerful, because you know the truth when you hear it. you know? And so my business, I've really just been as vulnerable as I can and honest as I can. And I think that's why people have really connected with it. Cause I'm not trying to, do it for the gram,
No.
My feed does look pretty. I was a professional photographer for a very long time.
Yes.
But, really just sharing genuinely, I feel like that growth and connection just happens naturally because people know when you're being authentic and they're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. I think people can sniff out the like inauthentic people in a heartbeat, especially when you're in this world and in this space and going through something that's so hard. For sure. Who's for real and who's not. I want to make a personal request and say, I want to order some Infertile AF sunnies, your sunglasses.
Oh, yeah. That's such a good idea.
That? Okay.
Yes, of course. Oh my gosh. And the sunnies are so fun.
They're so cute and probably a fertility rally pair too. So we'll talk about that after, but I definitely want some of those. So, okay, let's get back to your story, Rachel. Tell me a little bit more. So you have your son, you've moved. When did you guys decide to go in again for, your next, because you still had embryos left, right? So tell me about the next transfer and leading up to that.
So Adam came back from deployment. We finally he left August 2020 and we were finally living together again. He ended up getting stationed in Texas where we were already living for a shore command, August 2021. So a year later, we've been apart for a year. We decide to we are living together again.
Good.
We decide to live together again. So we come back together and we transition from deployment life to regular life again. And I think a lot of people see those homecoming videos online and they're like, oh, everything is great. They're back together again. But any military family will tell you that deployment reintegration is so brutal and so hard. And for some reason, I decided that was the best time to jump back into IVF. I just can't help myself. Well, I'm a woman on this timeline, but those months were hard leading up to our transfer. When you come back together after living apart for so long, you spend a year learning to not need each other. And then all of a sudden you're living together again. But because I'll be honest with you, Adam was not ready to do another transfer. He was not ready to have more kids. And he was very honest about it. And I was just like, well, I'm 4 years older than you. And I pulled rank, I guess. And we were going to do the transfer in Hawaii. And then I called the clinic and the clinic said, we're not taking out of state people anymore. So I was like, cool. So because there's those 5 military hospitals that have REI clinics, I called around to them. And the one in Seattle was accepting new patients. They could accept the embryos. There's a military hospital here in Texas in San Antonio that has an REI clinic, but they don't accept out of state embryos. So basically, to sum it all up, I'm like getting all rambly. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
He came back.
You're good.
We decided to do a transfer despite he and I just figuring out married life again and toddler life. And we shipped the embryos to Seattle. We scheduled a transfer for April 2021. So at this point, we've been living back together for like 8 months. And we decided to transfer two embryos.
Uh-huh.
And the reason for that is I wanted more than 2 kids. Obviously, it's not guaranteed, but I was hoping for more than 2 kids. And I didn't think that I could do postpartum 2 more times.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It was for like my well-being and for my marriage, because we were having a hard time readjusting back to life, that we were like, we need to be done now. And with IVF, not each other.
Right.
And
that would be a plot twist if you're like, and then we got divorced.
Yeah. We're like, and we're done. It was just about making babies. But that November before the transfer, I needed a saline sonogram, and I ended up needing a hysteroscopy because I had scar tissue in my uterus from the great placental ripping outage of me. But during my saline sonogram, I was laying there staring at the ceiling, so triggered by like past infertility trauma. And I remember thinking like, I'm never doing this again. Mm-hmm. And I called Adam crying after. I was like, after this, we're done. Like, I'm never doing this again. And so that was a big part of why we wanted to do 2. I couldn't do IVF again. I couldn't do postpartum again. Like the baby making does not agree with my mental health at all. And maybe it would be different if we hadn't done IVF. I don't know. I'll never know.
That's such a good way to phrase it. It's so true. It really fucks with your head.
God, it's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But we transferred too, and I got pregnant with freaking twins.
Okay. So
and they're
2
in my living room
transfers
right now.
and they both worked.
Yep.
That is
3 kids.
wild. And how old were you? Because you're still young. So how old were you when you did the second transfer?
Gosh, I was 33. Now I'm 34. My twins are 8 months old.
Okay.
We transferred in April. They were born in December.
Did your medical team or your REI have any hesitation with the transferring the 2? Or was it like, I want to do this and here's why? And they were like, cool.
Oh, guess what he said? You were going to get a little of this. He asked me why I wanted to do it. I explained we have to travel. We want the better odds. I am hoping for twins. He said, I've seen bad outcomes with multiples, but I've also seen bad outcomes with singletons, and it's your body, so it's your choice. And I was like, oh, imagine that. So he really left it up to me and my
body, your choice. Could you imagine if everybody worked that way? That would be
radical, man.
The world would be a million times better.
He was just the nicest man who laid out all the risks for me. And he said, it's your choice.
Good. I love that.
Bless you, sir.
I just got the chills again. This is a multiple chills episode for me.
Oh,
you're like really hitting some good ones.
Do I get gold stars? Do you have gold stars on the wall?
5-star review. Your Uber rating, your podcast rating just went up. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to travel to Seattle for our transfer. And at that time, our son had just turned 2. Mm-hmm. So we had a 2-year-old at home, and we had to be in Seattle for a week, just the 2 of us. So for us, it was felt like the biggest vacation ever, especially after deployment and me solo parenting our son for a year, which was like a whole thing. Mm-hmm. So hard. And we went to Seattle for the transfer and had the most amazing trip and really reconnected. It's amazing when you get out of your environment, you're like, oh, we still really like each other. It's just life that's hard,
Totally. Yep.
And I got a very faint positive with the twins, the night of day 3, which I didn't notice the line until the next day after I got a faint positive, the morning of day 4. And then I looked back and I was like, oh my gosh, there was a line last night. I didn't even see it.
Oh, wow.
And I was freaking pregnant I still can't believe I had twins. Twins is like a whole situation.
Yes. Well, so you got the line. And then when was your beta?
Beta was day 9.
Okay. And was
I think it was 400 something.
Really okay.
I think it was it wasn't insanely high. But it was twice what my beta was with my son. I don't really know how the science behind betas and how they work, if it varies person to person or pregnancy to pregnancy, but it was higher than my son. And I was like, maybe they both took. And our first scan, I love my OB here in Fort Worth. She's just the most amazing, wonderful woman. She curses in appointments, and I'm like, you're my superhero. But she did the scan and she's like, you got 2, girl. And I was like, oh my God.
That's so incredible.
Yeah.
I love it.
Twins is crazy. It was a wild pregnancy for sure. But thankfully we did not have anything crazy happen medically. There's the typical, scares oh, this baby's not growing fast enough, or, you wonder when they're going to come. Are they going to go to the NICU? Everything with pregnancy, but especially a twin pregnancy, is just I literally could not think past Christmas, because they were due January 7th. I was literally in my mind, I could imagine Christmas. And then I was like, the rest of my life is this blank canvas. I have no idea what's going to happen.
That's kind of cool though, right? You're like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. But they ended up coming at 35 weeks, 6 days. Mm-hmm. We did a
that's great for twins though.
Yeah. So we were planning on a C-section from the beginning because of the placental issues I had before. My doctor, she didn't pressure me for the C-section, but I was open to whatever. I am not this person who has this high expectation, magical expectation for her birth experience. My birth plan with both of my pregnancies was nobody dies. And it sounds morbid, but it's under promise, over deliver, nobody died. And then everything after that was just whatever.
Gravy.
Yes. And so I was totally okay with the C-section. the reason for the C-section, like I said, was because of the placental issues. Like she was like, with twins, with vaginal birth, there's a lot going on. Like there's a baby and then a placenta and then a baby and another placenta. And I can't see anything. And she was like, I really want to see what's going on, especially if you start bleeding. Cause she's like, also, this could be a situation where you bleed so much, you need a hysterectomy because this happened to you before. You got a lot of placenta in there. So I was actually prepared for hysterectomy mentally.
Okay. And you were okay with that?
I was, because it would stop me from myself of doing IVF again,
Yeah.
which I did not end up with my hysterectomy. And so because of that, it put us in this position of having to make decisions about our embryos. Because in my mind, I thought, well, I'm not going to have a uterus after this. So the decision is very easy. Like we're not going to have more kids.
Right.
And that will be that. And I will be saved from myself from doing this again because the hormones hit once you have a baby. I literally, in the recovery of my C-section, my twin C-section, I told my husband, I want to be a surrogate.
Oh my God.
And he was like, shh.
Yeah.
The hormones, let's talk later. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. So wait, how many embryos did you have left?
7
left. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that. Like what, I love if people are willing to talk about that, because I think that's it doesn't get talked about enough, when there's embryos left and people are kind of closing the chapter. So how did you guys get to where you are now?
So during my twin pregnancy, Roe versus Wade was overturned, which leaves, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, a lot of question marks for how those decisions and those rulings could affect infertility treatments and the infertility community. And so when that happened, I was like, we got embryos. Like we may have to make this decision sooner than we thought. Because in my head, I was like, we'll just keep them on ice for like years. And so that kind of put it in the front of my mind. Like, this is something we need to have a conclusion about. Mm-hmm. And then I had my twins, and I still am like, maybe we'll just get pregnant naturally. I seriously cannot be helped. I can't be helped. you always.
I love you though. This is so entertaining.
I'm glad. So somewhere deep down, I feel like you always hope. There's always like that little voice that's like, maybe it will happen naturally. And it's like
100%. Yeah.
I take birth control every day, and still I'm like, maybe it'll happen naturally.
Right.
But the embryo thing, I asked for the paperwork to have them destroyed in March, and it's July now. I didn't feel comfortable with embryo adoption. I think it's a really wonderful thing for people that it's the right fit for. And for our family, do you want me to walk you through our thought process on that?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to offend anyone or like,
you know what? This is your opinion. This is your story. Yeah. Not everybody has to agree with everything. And, if people feel differently, then that's okay. Everybody can feel the way that they want to feel, but this is your story.
Yeah. I know that embryo adoption has been amazing for a lot of people. So I almost feel guilt about not doing it. And that's kind of where my hesitation to talk about it is. It's like, I wonder, like, did I make the right decision?
I think that's very human of you to say it, and we don't really know sometimes the decisions that we make, if it's going to be the right decision or not. And sometimes you may never know. Right. But I do think talking about, I don't want to pressure you into talking about anything. No, but I do think talking about stuff like this just makes it easier for people to talk about it afterwards. It's just, again, like releasing that tension and the stigmas and all that stuff.
Yeah. My reason against embryo adoption for us was very practical, that our DNA is no longer like private information with things like Ancestry and like 23andMe, that in 50 years, my kids could put in their DNA and have full siblings in the world. And that maybe that would be a confusing thing, or I just wanted this chapter closed, and I did not want in my mind to be loose ends or any more wondering or what ifs, like, what if my kid's at school with their biological sibling? It felt not as wrapped up as I really needed a very messy thing to finally be just closed.
Yeah.
And that was my reasons for choosing what we did. We checked the little box that said that the embryologist could use our embryos for practice. So I don't think it was technically donating to science, but they were put to some use. And we got that paperwork in March. And I just stared at it until just a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what, because I am insufferable, what made me finally sign it is my husband and I, we took ourselves out on a date, and he was like, I'm not opposed to trying naturally to see what happens. So if you want to destroy the embryos, I don't want you to feel like it's a never, never, never thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really needed that little carrot to be dangled. Closing the chapter on making babies is so painful, even if the process to make those babies is really painful.
Yeah.
Like it's like when you get married, your wedding's over in a day and you're like, what? It's over? Like I've had 3 babies in the last 3.5 years and it's over. Like, yeah. I will never be pregnant again. I will never have a newborn again. Like it is so sad. And when you have embryos, the temptation is there always. And it's different than other people who don't have embryos or let's just say like fertile couples who are just like, oh, we're just going to get a vasectomy or be on birth control. My embryos existed. So it's like that temptation was always going to be there, that wondering. And it was really, really, really painful to sign those papers. But the first day I did it, I was just devastated, just like crying all day. I was so sad.
Mm-hmm.
But the next day I felt really relieved that this thing on my back for so long, the wondering, the what ifs, what are we going to do about it? That was gone. It was off my back finally, this big question mark of what are we going to do? And now that we've fully closed the chapter on IVF, and I'll be clear, neither my husband or I think we can get pregnant naturally, but I like to live in this world where,
sure,
maybe it's an option.
Right.
I'm the worst. But now that it's all closed, it's like we're talking about grief not being linear. Life since we got married has been so go, so fast. So many big things have happened. We bought 3 houses. We did IVF, Hawaii to Texas, moving, starting a business. I let go of my photography career. My husband deployed. There's been so much that's happened. I don't think I've been able to grieve any of it really. Mm-hmm. And so now that the chapter is closed, things are starting to come up. And my really good friend the one who asked me about boundaries when she got unexpectedly pregnant. And what's cool is she had her son 6 weeks before I had my son. So we went through postpartum in the pandemic together, which was such a gift.
Oh, wow.
She said to me, I communicate with all my friends on Marco Polo. Do you use the Marco Polo app?
I don't, but I'm aware of it. Yeah.
Video message. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She was Marco Poloing me. She's like, Rach, she's like, I think you just need to like grieve all of this. And I was like, I think I need therapy. So infertility doesn't end when you have a baby.
Exactly.
There's so much that happens and so much stuff to sort through. You can't process grief as it's happening to you. It's always kind of like an unfolding later. And I feel like that's where I'm at now, where I'm starting to grieve a lot about IVF and infertility and also about being a parent. I randomly the other day just broke down sobbing. Oh my God, I'm going to cry now. Because I was like, my grandma died over 10 years ago. I loved my grandma. I was crying because she can't meet my daughter. Yeah. I was like, where is this coming from? Like all of these things just like come up. Being a parent is just so painful. Yeah. So beautiful, but so just brutal and painful. And it forces you to reflect. It's like a mirror. Yes. And now that this IVF, because my IVF experience was very checklist, do this, next thing. Now that part is over, I'm kind of like in the feeling portion of the journey finally. And I'm like, dang, I'm just like kind of sitting back and like looking at all of it, kind of like doing like the life review of the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I got a lot to sort through.
Thank you so much for listening. And Rachel, thank you so much, babe. I loved talking to you. Guys, check out Peak and Valley Beads. They have an Etsy store. They're on Instagram. It is peakanvalley.beads is their IG handle. So check them out and let her know that you heard her on the Infertile AF podcast as well. So thank you for listening. Please also check out Fertility Rally, which is the community I started because it's the place I wish I had when I was going through all this bullshit. And we've got so many support groups a week. We're adding more in the fall. We have Rally Guys, which is a free guys support group too. So if you have any guys in your life that need support, send them our way. We've got virtual and IRL events. We've got curated content, tons of videos online, 3 private Facebook groups, 1 for the guys too, so 4 actually, and so much more. So check us out at fertilityrally.com and also go to our Instagram at Fertility Rally. So there's so much support out there. You are not alone no matter what you're going through. You can always reach out to me as well. Thank you guys for listening. And thanks again to Rach.